Hey, James Hayes here. Welcome to the Developmental Edge channel, where smart coaches learn how to fast track their skills and their business. Today we're going to talk about the things that can go wrong in coaching sessions. All of the little itty bitty things that clients can do that might derail the sessions, or things that might happen to you, like going blank and not knowing what to say. The reality is not every session goes according to plan. Lots of things can happen that get in the way of things going smoothly for you and your client. If you don't know how to handle these things, you'll end up fumbling around, asking irrelevant questions, rigidly focusing on your coaching practices, or just simply not knowing what to do. This can make the whole experience pretty weird for you and for your client. On the other hand, when you know these scenarios in advance, you know how they work, you know what to do with them, you could handle each of these things like a pro and turn weird into wow. So that's what today's video is all about. I'm going to show you the 8 most common things that can go wrong in your coaching sessions and how to handle them like a pro. Common challenge number 1, your client's going off on a tangent. They're rambling, they're telling you a story, it doesn't seem to have anything to do with the outcome. How do you handle this? Well, a real simple question is to ask your client, how does what you're explaining to me right now relate to your outcome? And if we ask this question with openness, with curiosity, one of two things is going to happen. Your client is going to suddenly either give you context that you didn't have, which now makes this story that they're telling make sense for your outcome. Or they're going to realize, oh, I'm going off on a tangent, and it helps redirect them back to the main point that you should be discussing. Super simple way of handling this. Common problem number 2, going blank in the session. Not sure where to go next or what to ask. Sometimes we all just get mental blanks. What do you do? Well, a great way of handling this is to just start a recap. Okay, so here's where we started in this conversation. Here's some of the things that we discussed, and here's where we are now. Doing this will give both you and the coachee a chance for your brains to catch up to all of the things you've been discussing. It will also help highlight anything that was confusing or any details that are kind of missing from your dialogue. That's going to give you plenty of time to figure out where to go next, as well as give you some ammunition about what to ask next. Challenge number 3, your client becomes overly argumentative. Maybe they're defensive, or they're just one of those devil's advocate type thinkers. Anytime your coachee starts getting overly disagreeable, like everything you say, they're saying, yeah, but this, or yeah, but that. How do you handle this? Well, this depends on where this is coming from, and this can come from a number of different places. Sometimes people become contrarian or argumentative when they're feeling defensive. So suddenly we might be talking about something that's a touchy subject for them. Or it could indicate that there's a lack of connection between us, a lack of rapport. It could also be a sign that this person's just got a really strong habit. It's like one of their communication styles. Some cultures, some countries, for example, really endorse and encourage contrarian type thinking, like a lot of Eastern European countries, for example. So how do you handle this? Well, if it's sudden, if it's out of nowhere, and they haven't been demonstrating this like consistently, then it's a good sign that they're probably not feeling so safe. Something's happened, they're not feeling so safe. Either it's a touchy subject, or maybe there's been a breaking connection between the two of you. Either way, we want to do 2 things. We want to gently go back to rapport building and building some safety and building some connection between us. Good ways of doing this is just acknowledging what the person's saying, connecting with them about how they're feeling, things like that. And to also raise it, gently raise it. Hey, I notice as we start talking about XYZ subject, I'm receiving a lot of yes, but answers from you. Are you aware of that? So we're just gently bringing their attention to it. That gives them the opportunity to explain where it's coming from. Yeah, this is a touchy subject, or I'm feeling uncomfortable, or something like that. That helps you figure out where to go next with this person. If it's been a consistent experience the whole way through, It's probably not a touchy subject or a connection issue. It's probably just this person's communication preference. It's their habitual way of communicating. Either way, if it's starting to derail things, we want to again raise it with the person. Hey, I noticed in the last 4 out of 5 things I've just said, your response has been yes, but do you notice that? Is this a habit of yours? Is this a pattern in your life? Do you find yourself getting in contrarian devil's advocate debates with people even when you didn't mean to? If you're on the money with this one, they're going to laugh and say, yeah, that happens to me all the time. Okay, great. Well, now we have a coaching habit or a pattern to work with. So here we can just gently suggest, for the purposes of us making progress towards your goal, would you be interested, open to exploring what you agree with some of these points that we're trading here together, before sharing what you disagree with? That way we'll get the benefit of both sides. That's a great way of also helping them flex muscles beyond just their devil's advocate muscle, and also it's going to help them in communication with other people who aren't you in their life. Common challenge number 4, your client is so detailed. You ask them one question, 30 minutes later, they're still talking, and most of those details that they're sharing aren't really relevant and not getting to the point. How do you handle that? A great question to ask in situations like this is, could you please say that to me again in 1 to 2 sentences? Or could you please summarize that in 1 to 2 sentences, please? This question helps the other person, or puts the other person in the position of having to organize all the overwhelming details in their head into just the highlights, because only the highlights can fit into 1 to 2 sentences. It's also a great practice for this person. Like if it's a real strong habit for them, they're probably derailing communication with other people in their work or in their life. So even just giving this question to them as a coaching practice. Hey, for the next 2 weeks, I want you to focus on, in all your communications, asking yourself this question. What am I trying to say in 1 to 2 sentences? And then saying that. That's going to help you become more of a global thinker and be more succinct in your communication. Challenge number 5, the opposite problem of too detailed. Your client is too vague. You're having conversations with them, could be pretty interesting conversations, but you don't know what they're saying. You don't know where this is going. We've been having a conversation for half an hour now, and I don't even know what you're talking about. If you're confused often with your client, that's a telltale sign that they're probably so global in their thinking that all of their communications are really vague and you don't even know what they're talking about. A great way of handling this is to ask for concrete specifics. Could you please give me an example of what you're talking about? Could you please tell me what that means in concrete terms? Even saying something as simple as, I can't make a movie of what you're saying in my mind. Could you please specify, define that word? Give me a specific example. Anytime you're asking for examples or you're asking them to be specific, you're forcing them to go from global vague land into concrete details, which is what is missing in their communication. This is also a good thing to recommend for them as a practice in their communication outside of your coaching sessions, so that they can get better and better at communicating with people, both with the highlights, but also with more clear information. Challenge number 6, your client is too shy. They are a person of few words. You're going through all of these amazing processes in your coaching journey and you don't even know what experience they're having on the other end because they're not very vocal. How do you handle that? Well, 2 ways. One way, again, gently point it out. Hey, for me to know where we're at in this coaching process, I need to know what's going on for you. That helps me understand where we should be going next in your process. That's one way. Another way is more of my favorite question to ask in these cases. And the favorite question is, what does this bring up for you now? So you've done an amazing process. They have experienced something. You don't know what they've experienced. Simple reset question is, what does this bring up for you now? It's an open-ended question that gives them the opportunity to just share what's happening in their mental, emotional process. Number 7, when your client confuses their opinion for fact. You ever experienced this? Some examples of this might be, they believe they know that somebody else did this thing just to hurt them. or they believe they know that their boss hates them without any evidence. So a lot of clients fall prey to confusing I've got an opinion or a suspicion or a fear with that's a fact and it's definitely happening. And we need to help people separate fact from interpretation. Otherwise, they get themselves in all kinds of trouble. Start dealing with problems that aren't even there. So a great question to ask in these cases is, could you share with me the evidence or the data that's led you to that conclusion? Now, in a lot of cases, they're not going to have any evidence, or the evidence that they have is going to be, a little bit of evidence, but the leap they're making is too huge. So we want to hear, what is the evidence that you're using for this conclusion? And if it's a little bit, we can point that out. We can say, with that amount of evidence, is your conclusion justified? Is it really true that that's a fact, or is this more likely to be an interpretation? So please share with me the data you're using for that conclusion. Or another way of asking this might be, how do you know? How do you know that's true? What are you looking at? What are your references? What's your evidence? Very quickly, when people have to answer this question, they start to realize, maybe I don't have any evidence, or my evidence is pretty small, and that helps them relax the conclusion that they've arrived at, which is usually a negative one. Number 8, our final one's a bit of a catch-all. So whenever your client has a habit that gets in the way of the coaching session, maybe your client has a habit we haven't discussed so far, the 2 most important ways of handling this, one we've kind of mentioned a little bit already, is point it out. Part of your job as a coach is to help your clients have more and more awareness of what's going on inside them and how they're showing up in the world. With more awareness, they've got more control, they've got more choices. So whenever there's a strong habit, we want to help them become aware of it, especially if it's showing up in the session. Tip number 2, anytime you experience one of these kind of habits, maybe it's someone's too detailed or you're going blank or whatever it is, it's an opportunity for you to write it down and to set it as a potential expectation for your future sessions. So anything that we want to interrupt or deal with is best dealt with up front before they ever happen rather than later on when they've already happened. So I recommend creating your very own bank of things to talk about up front. For example, you might set an expectation up front with your future coachees when they first come into a coaching relationship with you. You might say something like, hey, one of the things that's really important for the success of our relationship is for you to share with as much as you can with me what's going on with your mental processes, how you're feeling, what you're experiencing in the session. Don't assume I'll be able to read your mind, because I won't. And the more I know about you, the better I can tailor my questions to help support you. So here we're basically saying, hey, don't be shy. Tell me everything. Tell me lots of things. Setting this as an expectation up front is going to make it much easier later on. If I've got a shy client who doesn't speak so much, I can simply say, hey, do you remember one of the things we talked about in our original session was the more you share with me, the more I can help. Well, this is one of those great times for you to share with me. Setting expectations goes a long way to solving problems before they ever happen, so I totally recommend you create your own list of expectations to set with every client. So there you have it, 8 of the most common difficult coaching scenarios and how to handle them like a pro. Now, I'd love to hear from you. Have you encountered a difficult situation we didn't mention today? Let us know, leave a comment. If you like this video, hit the subscribe button. If you know someone who'd appreciate this content, spread the love, share it with them. And if you'd like some cool extra free resources, check the links in the description to this video. That's it from me. Stay hungry and we'll catch you in the next one.